Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Brian Smith. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 27 years. So if you're a company that has software, product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Zane Tarence. Zane is an investment banker. He's partner and managing director of Founders Advisory Technology Practice. Over the past 20 years, Zane has led and completed more than 87 technology deals. And so he's well in touch with what can help make a deal happen and what can cause it to fail. And before he worked with founders, Zane created and sold 2 tech businesses of his own to publicly traded companies, which helped him to really understand the ingredients that are necessary to close an exceptional deal. Zane frequently speaks on stages, is a board member of numerous companies and philanthropic organizations, and I'm very pleased to welcome here today Zane Tarence. Welcome, Zane.
Thank you, Rich. I'm excited to be here, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so here's the thing. So investment banking, it's a term. So I'm a lawyer, and so I've been trained in some legal financial things, let's say. But investment banking is a term that's always eluded me. I have an idea of what it is. I never knew exactly what it is and what elements go into it. So I'd say for other people who've been afraid to admit that they don't quite know what investment banking is, I'd love if you can just give us a bit of a primer on the area of your field of endeavor.
Absolutely, Rich. And that is a great question. And I'm a different type of investment banker because of the way I got to this space. Like many of your listeners, I was an owner and operator, as you said in my intro. And I worked for IBM before that, and I ran a consulting practice for IBM Global Services. And I, like you, it was kind of fuzzy to me what investment bankers did. After I started my first business, IBM actually was a corporate venturing partner. And then I ended up having some VC groups involved and then a private equity group. And one day, Rich, my investors in a board meeting, said, Zane, we want to introduce you to somebody. His name is Chip Porter. He's an investment banker. I'm 56 years old right now. I was 32 years old then. And that's really my first time to really get involved with this. And here's what they do. And we do now. And I'll give a little bit about my background in a minute, the way I got here. We help entrepreneurs and founders of private companies. And this is what all investment bankers do. The bigger ones on Wall Street work with more publicly traded companies. A boutique bank like we are, we have about 42 bankers. And we are a broker dealer. And of course, you as an attorney understand that we are regulated by the Security and Exchange Commission and also FINRA, to where we can literally work with private companies to securitize them. So we can take them to a broader market of investors, and they can invest in those businesses. So what we do is we help these entrepreneurs and founders understand their liquidity options. And these vary. Most entrepreneurs don't understand this. They need a Sherpa. They need a river guide to say, here's my company. Am I truly investment grade? And are there different types of investors and buyers out there that would be interested in me? And how do I access that? And most entrepreneurs don't know how. So we help them do that. We help you get underwritten, tell your story, get your financials, your growth strategy, your unit economic models in position for institutional investors to give you capital or to purchase stock in your company. That's what we do. Now, there's some other things as well, like fairness opinions. When somebody needs, if you have investors and they want a valuation, it's like, hey, what's this company worth, right? Or buy side work. If you have a growth strategy that includes growth by acquisition, we'll help you implement a buy side strategy. But basically, we're river guides to help entrepreneurs understand and prepare for all the optionality that's in the marketplace for their business.
Got it. And I guess another way to say that too is that you help structure deals. You help figure out what are the options, and then you structure deals which allow them to obtain some liquidity or get some investment into their business, even if they're not leaving, right? If they're
Right.
If they're just restructuring in a way that brings capital in.
Absolutely. And that takes all kinds of forms, in primary capital that's basically going to the balance sheet, or secondary capital where a owner of a private company says, I'd like a little liquidity, whether it's 20%, 40%, 80%, or 100%. So you're exactly right. We guide them through that, and we are deal people. And of course, you as an attorney, attorneys are a big part of our clients' teams because y'all help memorialize these deals and make sure the risk is appropriately allocated, amongst the seller and the buyer.
Got it. Okay, and so then, like, what helps make a company investment worthy? Like, if you are an entrepreneur, and I know you've been an entrepreneur, but speaking to entrepreneurs that are considering that they want to gain some liquidity, they want to make their company investment worthy. Like, what are some things that they can do or they should look out for to make that happen?
Rich, that is one of my favorite questions because,
All
like
right, let's go.
Hey, let's go. Hey, you better watch out. You're going to have to stop me. And of course, the book I wrote, the 17 reasons your company is not investment grade and what to do about it, was born out of that question over and over that I got from entrepreneurs. What makes a valuable company? What makes it to where if I go to market, I'll get a lot of bids versus zero bids? And so that is a fantastic question. I'm going to tell you the first thing. I believe this with everything in me, and I know it through experience. I've seen thousands of letters of intent and indications of interest. And I think we did our 91st institutional deal with technology companies 2 weeks ago. And then I've done 4 of my own companies, 2 that I started and 2 that I basically invested in and hired a CEO. It is this one thing is the most important thing: predictability. What makes a great public company is predictability of the earnings, of the risks, predictability. And that's the reason revenue streams are so important. How predictable are your revenue streams? If you have one-time revenue and you don't really know when it's going to happen, that is not a very attractive company. If you have recurring revenue that you're on a subscription, or you're a utility, or you're the type company that it's very easy to predict the demand, that's a valuable company. So I would say I have 17 reasons in my book, but predictability is the key. And great companies have instrumentation in their business where they know what's happening. They can predict what they're going to make next quarter and why. And you're rewarded for that because institutional investors, Rich, they want one thing: risk-adjusted future cash flows. So predictability is number one. Recurring revenue, reoccurring revenue, or one-time revenue, but you're able to get that over and over because you're in a great market. So that's number one. Now, I got a lot more, but that's number one.
Yeah, well, let's hit on that one. Then we'll go to the next one, right? So with predictability, I think also in there is sustainability, right? Because it's like not just predictable of what direction it's going, but I think if someone's paying you a multiple on what your EBITDA is, what your profitability is, right? It's say they're paying you a multiple of 3. Like, they're basically banking on the fact that the party is going to continue for at least 3 years.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Whatever is happening, it's going to keep rolling for at least 3 years, and that's justifies a multiple of 3, right? And that's sustainability, right? So
100%.
predictable in a sustainable way, like that your profits will be sustained based on the systems and everything else you've created.
Rich, you are spot on. It's in durability, sustainability, predictability, and that has to do with some other reasons, right? Other things like the market you're serving. What are the headwinds and tailwinds in your market? If you're in a market that's got fundamental issues or that's changing so radically that, oh no, are we going to continue, to achieve growth and profits? You're not going to trade for much. And people say, why does this company trade for so much and that one doesn't? They're in the same industry. It's because of predictability and durability, sustainability. And so that's your market. That's also your ability to retain and attract talent. In the world that you work in, Rich, and I do with industries of the mind, right? That have intellectual property and software and unique processes. You got to have a culture to retain those people, because if those people leave you, so does your predictability and your endurability. So people and markets matter. Are you participating in a market that is growing, that is thriving, that you are well positioned with your intellectual property, your barriers to entry? Hey, Rich, if anybody can come in your business and set up shop and compete with you with limited barriers to entry, my friend, as we say down south, you don't have a business. And we call it a business down here. You don't, because I can just go and hire your best salesperson or hire your COO. So you must
And then I'm in
have
business.
And then you're in business, and basically I train my competition, and I've done that before. I've experienced that, and a lot of my clients have done that. And so, same with intellectual property. What you do for your clients and clients that we know together, you help them build that beautiful thing called a defensible moat that adds so much, enduring nature to that business, because they can use that IP over and over and over and have a competitive advantage. So
Have that
these
barrier
are like
to entry.
barrier to entry mode.
Yep.
And I love this. I love this statement. I study Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, 98 years old. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I'll just sit and watch his YouTube sometimes, Rich. He is so brilliant, and he gets to the point. He's just direct. And I was listening one time to him and Warren Buffett talk about these barriers to entry, these defensible moats, MOATS, around the castle of your business. And somebody asked a question, hey, Warren and Charlie, how do I create a defensible moat for my business, a barrier to entry? Because you guys are always talking about, you in your companies, you love the ones that have that barrier to entry because they have pricing power. It was so funny. I saw this. I forgot where I saw this on some YouTube. Warren Buffett got the mic. This guy said, how do I create a defensible moat for my business? And he said, damn if I know. That's the reason I purchase companies that have them. That's important. Have something that differentiates you from your competitor and that they can't easily replicate.
Yep. Absolutely. And so then you could say, if that's what Warren Buffett's saying, then he's basically saying that the whole key to entrepreneurship, or maybe one big key, is creating that defensible moat, right? Primarily, you're going to create value. You're going to create something that sustainably creates value in the world. But then on top of that, to make a business that he wants to purchase, you've got to figure out how to create your defensible moat.
Exactly, because why would I purchase you? Why would he purchase us? He could go hire a team.
Right.
He's got plenty of capital, land, labor, capital, talent. Why does he have to buy you if he can replicate it?
Exactly. And then that's the measure of the value then. Without the IP, the measure of value is, well, okay, yes, maybe a multiple on your profits, but on the sideline here, what would it cost for me to just create what you've created? For me to hire a bunch of people and do enough advertising to get the level of clients that you've achieved? And would it be cheaper to just do that? And then that's what you're competing for.
You're right. So that's another thing. And when you look at all this of what creates value in a private company, it's very similar, obviously, to what creates value in a public company. In public companies, you can study it. They have more transparency. They're showing all their operating metrics. But a lot of private companies, the owners don't have a ticker symbol. They can't type in Google IBM and see what their stock's worth today. So you have to look at these different characteristics and candidly assess yourself and say, how am I really doing against my peers and all these factors? And Rich, that's what drives valuation for a private company. So, and it's really calculus. It's really when you put all these things together, institutional investors, they want one thing desperately and they hate something. And you got to look at this in your business. Here's what they want: growth. Growth. Can this company, because it's got a unique product market fit, a barrier to entry, a good market, great management team, can it continue, like you said, to grow? But guess how they want to grow? As risk-free as possible. So when you have good management teams, good advisors, a good patent attorney, a good bank, that de-risks that business. And that's what they like. So the two major things: growth and take as much risk out of that business as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's another level to that too, with in terms of we talking about IP and taking those steps, is that it shows someone that you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, which probably translates across your business. And so, someone is looking for that risk-free growth. They're looking to see there's that predictability. And part of it is they're looking at you, the business owner, saying, have you dotted your I's and crossed your T's? And so the extent to which you've done it in one area has them believe that you're probably doing it across the board, that you're probably
100%.
taking care of business.
100%. And let me give an area that I see in due diligence that brings out your point, just double clicks on the point you just made, Rich. These buyers in due diligence, they look at your key processes for your business and they want to know, is that documented? Are you just a cowboy running your bill? I come to work every day and I just have a gut feeling. They don't like that. They like documented processes that are continuously improved, that have software systems that instantiate those processes. So you can support a very talented team and produce predictable outcomes. They don't like cowboys. They don't. So yeah.
Cowboys are unpredictable.
No, they're not predictable. You say, oh, but they're so talented. Yeah, but they're not predictable. We like predictable growth. So documentation, I tell owners all the time, show that whatever your key processes are, if they're sales and marketing, if it's product development, know those differentiating factors of your business and document those. If you say we're very good in sales and we're better than our peer group, we convert more demos to customers than our peer. Really? Show me. Because guess what the native language of investors is? Data. I can't just say I have better customer service. I have better. Show me your conversion rates. Show me your process and how it's getting better. So data, documentation, also the right advisors, because like two of the things on my list in my book are a great financial house. Do you really keep excellent financial records? Do you know your key performance indicators? Do you have GAAP accounting? Do you have a quality of earnings or audits? Because your record in business are your numbers. Rich, there's so many great businesses that I get in touch with, man. I say, man, we could work together, get you a deal, and we get involved. Rich, their accounting is a disaster. And I have to tell them, let's don't go to market. You got some work to do. We got to get a CFO in here. We got to get a quality of earnings. Same thing with a legal house. And you know this, one of my reasons is your legal house in order? If you've got drama, if your customer contracts are all different, buyers just say too much drama. It's like buying a house and figuring out the house has a foundational issue. If you don't have your IP protected, if you don't have all your developers for your software, they've signed that everything they've done for you is a work for hire. Rich, I've seen companies that should trade for 50, $75 million worth nothing because they can't prove that they even own their intellectual property. So I'm sorry to get passionate, but when I see people destroy the type of value that I've seen destroyed for their stakeholders, their families, their employees, it really gets me fired up. And it's the reason I wrote the book. If you don't do these things, great if you make a lot of money, but you better go invest in apartment complexes because no investor's ever going to buy your company.
Yeah.
So sorry, Rich, I'm getting passionate.
My song over there, and I've seen on a even more simplistic level, e-com companies that have generated great sales. Like they would seem to be a great purchase, and predictable, sustainable, except that once someone starts digging into it, they don't own the name. They don't own their brand name.
Oh,
And even more so that there are some potential issues brewing that maybe someone else has better rights to it. They haven't taken action yet, but that's a deal killer right there.
it is a deal killer. And people say, well, Zane, you're overreacting. This is going to be okay. I might not sell my company for 12 times ARR, but if I just sell it for 3 or 4 times ARR, that's enough. I'm like, wait a second. These institutional investors, they're not interested in fixer-uppers. It's binary. A quality company sells for a fortune. A company that doesn't do some of these things, no institutional investor will touch it, Rich.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just it's not directly on point, but there's like an example that I've given people about how important it is to have a patent written well, which is that I have a client who had a biotech patent that they sold for $15 million. And there was some doubt of whether the other party was going to buy the patent because of one word. There was one word that, whoever wrote the application, there was something that made it doubtful of whether they needed this patent or not. And ultimately, they did decide to buy it. But it just goes to show you, it's like, if not for that one word, they would not have sold the patent, or they might not have sold the patent. So the difference between a patent that's well written and one that's mediocre written is not the difference between getting 15 million and maybe getting 7.5. It's getting 15 or getting 0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's showing that
So
ownership.
It's not exactly the same, but the same idea.
Yeah.
It's like you think like, well, maybe if we did almost as good a job, then we'll get less, but it will still be good. It's like, no, they'll walk away because it's the deal that they want.
You're absolutely right. Good stuff. So hey, and I got one more that you kind of brought up there. Another one that brings risk that I see over and over in tech companies, and they just don't realize the risk this brings them. And again, it's natural. It starts this way, and it's fine to have customer concentration. Early on, you might have one big customer where you're perfecting your product. You're really getting that product market fit, and that one big customer is awesome because they're a good referral source. It's great. But what does one customer or 2 customers or 3 customers that make up 75% of your revenues, what does that add to your business? Risk.
Yeah.
What if you lost one of those? What if the person retired?
What it adds is sleepless nights of like, well, what would happen if I lost that one big customer?
Oh my God. Oh, well, I'll tell you what happens. Your valuation goes, go. So that is another.
Because the investors don't want those sleepless nights.
No, because they want predictability. No, you don't need. And so, I tell people it's okay when you're starting off early, but make sure you put a premium on new accounts. Don't just. I've had to tell certain customers that were doing fantastic. I had a client that had Amazon was their biggest client. And I mean, what a great story and credibility, right? And Amazon was growing like crazy. They had software for their distribution centers. But I told them, you got to quit taking orders from Amazon because they actually, they wanted some liquidity within a year or two. Their customer concentration, they were growing, but their customer concentration was going like that. I said, y'all have got to go get other customers. They said, we got to turn down business. I said, yes. And guess what your client can do when they're that important to you? They can squeeze you. And Amazon is like Walmart. They will squeeze you if they can, if they know you're that important to them. So that's another one to be careful with.
Yep. No, I love it. I mean, and first of all, it sounds like almost all roads point to predictability. And I'm just wondering, is there any other, maybe we hit on one more item that you think really makes
Yeah.
a difference?
Yeah, and I hit several of these. One is innovation. I used to think innovation 7 years ago, even as a tech guy, I was like, everybody's just talking about this too much. Listen, it matters. There's a movement right now that you know about, Rich, the digital transformation movement for the Fortune, 1,000 probably. Bain Consulting, McKinsey's in every boardroom telling these large companies, you got to do digital transformation. And what they're doing now, instead of doing so much R&D, they're purchasing small businesses that have teams in innovation. So I'm going to say innovation, work on that. Make sure you have a culture of innovation, and even innovation in the way you do your contracts, innovation in the way you onboard a customer. Innovation matters, and strategic buyers especially cannot resist an innovative company that's learning all the time and increasing. That's a big one. Another one I would say, I was thinking about this when you went through, I talked about the culture a little bit. I talked about growth. You got to grow. I get a lot of guys saying, you know what? Growing's pretty hard. I'm satisfied. I'm making good EBITDA, good profit. Buyers don't buy companies that aren't growing. So you might destroy your income statement a little bit if you invest in growth because you have to hire more reps or a product manager. But I encourage entrepreneurs to make sure you're stretching yourself to grow, because healthy plants grow, healthy families grow, healthy businesses grow. I had a client that was very, very wealthy and older. He said, Zane, you're pushing me. I got what I need. Growth causes pain. And he said, I'm fine with my business, but one day I want to sell it to my employees and let them have it. Guess what we found out? Even though he's very wealthy, he had to grow, because guess what happened? His key talent didn't want to work for a company that's not growing. They wanted to work for a company that's healthy, that's alive. And so he had to grow to keep his talent. And so anyway, I would say growth. And then there's a lot of nuances in all these with operations. That's another one. Documentation, standard operating procedures. Rich, a company, especially an industry of the mind like you and I deal with, it is a set of people, processes, and some product or service that serves a market, and those systems create cash flow. You gotta keep scaling those systems and documenting. And so this thing, even the name cloud computing, I sell a lot of, well, where is this thing? It's in the clouds. What is it? And people, a lot of entrepreneurs don't document the it that is their processes, their technology, their people. So those are some of the other things. And it's common sense, but there's a lot of things common sense, Rich, that I don't execute on. It's common sense for me to know how to stay in shape. My daughter's a professional CrossFit athlete. Why do I sometimes struggle with a big belly? Is it because I don't have the content? I don't know how to keep from having a big belly? No. I know exactly I can't eat the carbs I eat. I know exactly I can't eat after 8 o'clock at night. My problem is not I don't know. My problem is I do not execute. And I find most business owners need accountability because they know these things. They say, well, thank you, Captain Obvious, for this list. And I'm like, I gave you this list because you're not doing it. So anyway, that's what I say.
A couple of things on that. So it's like a few of my favorite expressions on some of the things you just said. One is that not knowing how and not knowing why is probably the last reason that you're not accomplishing the result.
I like that.
Another one is talking about growth, is that any decision not to grow is ultimately a decision to decline.
Oh, I like those two. I need to laminate those and put them on my board. I like it.
Cool. Well, you reminded me of them, and so thank you for that. And I love it. This is fantastic. And it's also not intuitive is, so you're in Birmingham, Alabama, which is pretty far from Silicon Valley. But yet you've done something extraordinary, which is you're getting Silicon Valley to come to you. So tell me a bit about that.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for mentioning that. And it is a little bit of, of a contradiction, right? We're in Birmingham, Alabama, which is, you're like, wait a second, is that the tech hub of the world? And we've been very blessed to build a bank. And we do a lot of tech deals, a whole lot. And we have this event that I started doing 8 years ago, Rich, at my lake place, inviting people from around the world, friends that we had sold or buyers. And we just kind of hung out in Alabama, and I called it Bama Bash. Well, anyway, 8 years later, and we had to take 2 years off because of COVID, we are hosting again Silicon Y'all. So it's siliconyall.com, and we bring 20 of the top private equity investors in the United States. I mean, TA and Associates, Summit Partners, Accel KKR. We bring them into Birmingham, Alabama, with about 80 of the fastest growing SaaS businesses and technology services businesses. And we host them, and we have this elite retreat, and it's become a really fun thing. And I was looking at my list. We have 305 people that are on the wait list, and we can only accommodate our 80. And so it's become fun. It's a great deal. And hopefully I want to get you there one year, because
I would love to be
I think
there.
you could. Yeah,
When there's space for me, I'll be there. I guarantee.
Hey, well, there will be, because you and your friend Victor
Yes.
is going to speak this year, and so absolutely, I've got to get you to Silicon Y'all.
All right, that sounds great. And look, this was such a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. And if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
Oh, thanks, Rich. Our site, and I'm out there by email and everything, is founders, like founders of a company, IB as in investmentbank.com. Or Zane is such a weird name. You can put Zane, Birmingham, Alabama, and my book will come up, and that's where my email is as well. So thank you for asking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for such a rich and interesting and informative conversation. Thanks for taking the time. Really great to do this podcast episode with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Have a great weekend, my friend.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.